Expected Tarrying. My name is Daniel Vallis, and welcome to our channel. The new moon was sighted the other day, starting the 4th month on the biblical celestial calendar. And so we're at an important time here, a transition between the 3rd month and the 4th month. And we've talked about the agricultural pictures about how the 3rd month was when they completed the wheat harvest. And in the 4th and 5th month is when they'd be focusing on pruning the vintage and harvesting the grapes. So it's not going to start right away. It really takes place over the period of those 2 months. So we're still in the time of the tender grapes, mentioned in the Song of Solomon. We're still in the agricultural conditions described when we should be expecting our beloved to call us up. And there's so much telling us that this time is so important. We're at a time when we are told to be expecting him. And this is something we got to keep in mind. We are given times to expect him to show up. But so far we have not reached any limits that said he can't show up. He has told us when to be expecting him and when to look for him, and this is where we are right now. And we see so much coming together at this time telling us to look up. We're at a time where we also know what's on the horizon. We know what Christ said would be happening in the days ahead with the time of travail, and what also Paul and John and Timothy said about it too as well. We know sudden destruction is coming before the sign of the Son of Man appears in heaven. And we also know, with the ongoing pregnancy that's going on right now in the heavens, that it's at a time where the average Braxton Hicks contractions are starting to get stronger and stronger and more pronounced. And a woman would definitely be feeling them now, and they're going to only increase from here on out. So there's the understanding that sudden destruction, the time of travail, should be starting very soon anyway. We are at a time where there's multiple pictures of waiting for mediators, including our mediator. We still have the ongoing stories of Boaz and Moses and Christ coming together at this time. We're expecting our bridegroom. He's the one who told us to be looking in this time and expecting him. And we also have the ongoing historical and biblical pattern of Moses and the Hebrew people at Mount Sinai. They were expecting their mediator to return. So we still have that ongoing pattern as well. And then we talked about the tie-ins that Moses talked about the Redeemer, the Messiah. We even have the biblical record of a date on the 5th of this month about the heavens opening and the cherubim and whirlwinds. So many things pointing us to this time, a time of expectation where we are expecting him to show up. Even though we don't know the day, we know, okay, this is the time he has told us to be looking up and expecting him. So we are expecting and we are waiting for him to show up. Our bridegroom has ascended into the clouds, and he has told us specifically that he is gone to prepare a place and that he will return to take us to where he is. So we know our mediator, our Redeemer, is returning, and we also know how he's going to be returning too. And we recently passed the historic markers of Ascension, and then what happened a few days after that was Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit, the Comforter, was specifically given to us as an earnest, as a promise that our bridegroom would be returning, our beloved would be returning. And so not only do we have the promise that he did go up and make the promise, but he also gave us a reminder of that promise. And he does want us to remember him and what he did until he returns, till he comes. Because our mediator is coming back, and so we should be looking for him and living as though he is coming back. We are at the time when the Hebrew people were expecting, or they should have been expecting, Moses to come back down the mountain. And he gave instructions to Joshua and them that he was coming back. They knew their mediator was coming back, and they saw so many signs telling them that God was active and busy right there. And plus they had seen all the signs that led them to this place. The Hebrew people were at a place, a time of expectation. In our booklet, When to Watch, we've been covering what has our Lord, what has our Redeemer, our Mediator, our Beloved told us about when we should be looking for him. He does not tell us the day or hour that he's returning, but he does tell us, this is the time I want you to be expecting me to show up. This is the time I want you to expect me to come and pick you up. And so we've been looking at the prophetic funnel, everything coming together with the broader general prophecies, with the fig tree prophecies and other signs fulfilled over the past decades after that sign. Then recently we heard a very pronounced peace and safety warning back in November of 2015. And then we've been following his instructions about watching in the night watches, that time of the year, and then we've also been studying the Jubilee year and the springtime expectation, which we're still in because those conditions do bleed over into the summer. And so we've been watching what he told us to watch, and that brings us to here where we are right now. with a lot of emphasis on the first month, the month of redemption. We've learned so many pictures of that, and then how there's threads tied from there to where we are now with Ruth, and how that's an ongoing picture from that first month, and then also the Exodus accounts that led up to the people at Mount Sinai. That all backs up to the first month. So understanding what happened in the first month is so important for understanding where we are now, because the redemption story that started in the first month, those stories still continued, and they continue to where we are right now. And so we are looking at a tapestry of redemption at a time when we are told to expect our Redeemer. Also keeping in mind what he said will happen on the horizon sometime before the celestial date marker that he also gave. We don't know when that sun destruction will start exactly, just we know that it's going to happen before that time, and we know what's going to be happening because he even specified certain details about it. We find ourselves right now in the days of Noah and Lot, people living as though life's going on, and also celebrating wickedness just like the days of Noah and Lot as well. We find so many reminders to be sober and aware that yes, we are in the days of Noah and Lot. This is the time when we should be expecting the Son of Man to appear, our beloved to come and pick us up. When we understand the time he has told us to expect him, we know when we should be watching. We also know what he has told us about the future, so we're not looking at that time. We know that the rapture cannot be on that time because of what he said would be happening before that. And he definitely emphasized that he would be coming before those events started. So the time where we are right now is the time we are told to be expecting him. And so we are expecting him, looking for him, and watching the conditions that are still ongoing. We are at a time of expectation right now. Again, understanding where we are right now takes into account where we have been. Just like the Hebrew people at Mount Sinai, they did not just start there. They started back in Egypt. There are events that happened in Egypt with the Passover time, and then the crossing of the Red Sea and the manna and all that led them to Mount Sinai. And so understanding the significance of where they are now and their mediator who brought this redeemed people out of Egypt, that goes all the way back to the first month. This is a tapestry that we're looking at right here, and this is why I encourage you to study the timeline. Don't get focused on just a few days where we are right now. Understand and study. What is the picture coming into play here? What are the stories of redemption and mediators? What has led us to this time? We have been told to look up, for our redemption draweth nigh. We're looking for pictures, a tapestry of redemption, an understanding of redemption. And the more we understand the pictures of redemption and redeemers and mediators during this time, we have a better understanding of where we are right now. This is the time of expectation for the Redeemer, for the mediator, for the bridegroom. It's where we are now because we understand the backstory that led us to this point. And even with the story of Ruth, we've talked about Ruth. Her story started at first fruits, the barley first fruits, when she and Naomi came to Bethlehem, the house of bread, where the Messiah would be born one day. And she's a picture of barley first fruits. She came right at that time. But then we followed her story up to the time of Pentecost, right around there, when her Redeemer and her bridegroom gave her a promise, gave her an earnest that he was going to redeem her and that he was going to marry her. And again, re-emphasizing with the barley that she was a type, she was a picture of the barley first fruits. Even though the timing was later, it was still reminding us she is a picture of barley first fruits. And then when we've been talking about the significance of the third month, when he made that promise and when he gave her the 6 measures of barley, he was in the middle of barley processing and threshing, and then of course he had the wheat processing to do, which normally took up that whole month that was devoted to that time of harvesting. And so he's going to be very busy with that, and a lot of other people at that time too. So normally they would be putting off weddings until all that work was done. And you can read about the same mentality even in American pioneer stories about how they talk about during harvest time everything else stops because you have to give all your energy. It takes all your energy and time to put the harvest into the barn, to get it all stored away properly. Same back in this time. Everything stops during harvest time because they have to get it all into the barn. Then they can focus on the wedding, and then they can invite people who are not busy with their harvesting too. So Ruth's expectation for her bridegroom to pick her up, for them to get married, that would be after the third month, where we are right now in this picture where we are expecting our bridegroom. It would also be a time where she would be expecting, okay, now we can focus on the wedding. During the past few weeks, Boaz has also probably been preparing a place for her, for his future bride, because he'd have to do that anyway. And so we're at a time right now where other preparations, other work is done. That work of the harvest time. During that 3rd month, we are now in a time where that's behind us, and we're at a time when those preparations should be done, and we can expect the bridegroom to return. The bridegroom to return and pick up the barley bride. Ruth is still a picture of the barley bride even later because she was redeemed, and she's tied to barley at the beginning, and her redemption story, though, finishes up sometime after harvest, which is where we are right now. And where we're also seeing other pictures of mediators too, with Moses on top of the mountain and in the clouds, and we're expecting our mediator, and we're told that he's going to be returning in the clouds, just like we saw him leave. We see all those multiple pictures of mediators where we are right now. We're at a time of expectation where we should be expecting him to show up. And of course, this is the general time that he told us to expect him. So this is what we're going to do. And we've talked about before, he has emphasized multiple times, we will not know the day or the hour that he's going to return, when the Son of Man is going to come and pick up his bride. And even one of those is right at the end of the parable of the 10 virgins, because that's what it's about. It's about his return for his servants, and he wants to find us wise. He wants us to watch, knowing we will not know the day or hour, but he has told us a time to expect him. And this is very important that we get this through our heads. He tells us when we should expect him, but he does not nail himself down to a specific day or hour. And so when we follow his instructions of when we should expect him, that's what we should do. We should expect him to show up when we are where he told us to be expecting him. Just like in the parable of the 10 virgins. They were assembled there because there was a general time of expectation. And the wise virgins knew that it might tarry quite a bit beyond that too. That's even built into the story. The bridegroom can tarry. The bridegroom can take his time. And the wise virgins understood that, and so they applied themselves to making sure they had extra oil. They would replenish and refill so their lights would keep burning, even over an extended time, knowing the bridegroom could tarry. And the story does mention that he did tarry. And it also reminds us of Luke 12:34, which we've covered many times. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Let your loins be girded about, and your lights burning. And ye yourselves like unto men that wait for their Lord, when he will return from the wedding, that when he cometh and knocketh, they may open unto him immediately. Blessed are those servants, whom the Lord when he cometh shall find watching. Verily I say unto you, that he shall gird himself, and make them to sit down to meat, and will come forth and serve them. And if he shall come into 2nd watch, or come into 3rd watch, and find them so, blessed are those servants. And this know, that if the goodman of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched, and not have suffered his house to be broken through. Be ye therefore ready also, for the Son of Man cometh at an hour when ye think not. Now this is in the book of Luke, where Luke, who was a traveling companion of Paul and helped teach many of the Gentile churches, this is what they instructed him in, along with everything else that Christ said. When Christ returns, he is looking for the servants who are watching and living for him. Not just with head knowledge that he's coming back, but living as though he is coming back. He wants to return and find us busy with what we're supposed to be busy with, his instructions that he left, and expecting him to show up. Not living as though the cat's away, the mice will play. No, living as though our Lord is expected to return any moment. That's why he emphasizes, let your loins be girded about. Be ready to work. Be ready to go as well. And your lights burning. And of course that ties in with the teachings in Matthew as well. The instructions for his servants. He wants to find us shining bright. Replenishing and refilling our lamps daily. Spending time in God's Word daily. Fostering and growing the fruits of the Spirit in our life. That's how he wants to find us. Not sitting back just waiting for him to show up if he shows up. No, applying ourselves to his instructions and shining bright. And notice in verse 36 he gives an illustration, and that's what this is. He uses the term like. This is a like illustration, disciples, of how I expect my servants to be acting when I show up. So he gives the illustration of a boss, a master of servants, who goes off to a wedding. And he uses that because a wedding is a type of event where you know somebody's coming back from it, But especially in that Middle East culture there, weddings were a big deal. And it's not uncommon to be held over for quite a while and really not get out of there for quite a while after the event's over. They'll talk about all their family and their jobs, and next thing you know, you're staying for dessert and coffee, and next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning before you can finally get out of there. And so he's using the picture of a boss who's gone away to a wedding, and he's told his servants, stay up for me. I'm going to be coming back late. I don't know exactly when, but I am coming back. Just stay up for me. Keep the porch light on and keep a pot of coffee going for me too, because I am coming back. It's going to be sometime later tonight. So he goes off to the wedding. He left instructions for his servants of when to expect him. But he emphasized to them, I'm going to a wedding, and you know how those go. I may be held over for quite a while. Just keep watching for me. Keep expecting me to pull into the driveway. And he emphasizes the boss when he shows up, even if it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Blessed are those servants who are watching, because they expected their Lord to show up. They didn't say, oh, well, maybe he's not showing up. I'll just go to bed now. No, they kept watching even though they were probably looking at their watch and saying, man, he's taking forever. But they kept watching. They kept expecting him because they knew he was coming back and it was still in that area. It was still nigh to when he was expected to come back. So they kept watching. They kept the lights burning. They were ready to open the door when he pulled in the driveway. And Christ is emphasizing, this illustration is how I want to find you, disciples, how I want to find you, servants. You will know when to look for me, when to expect me. But you should also expect me to tarry, to take my time, because I am very long-suffering, you know that as well. But he does build into the pictures of when we should be watching for him. He builds into those stories the reminders that the bridegroom can tarry. The master may tarry. He may take his time. He may show up slightly later than when you are expecting him. But it's still going to be in the general time of expectation. And he gives this to us because this is how he wants us to be. And he says, the servants who are watching for him, who don't give up, who don't let their light go out, the servants who are shining bright and expecting their Lord and living as though he's about to pull in the driveway, they are going to be blessed. The other servants who did give up, who weren't shining bright, they are not going to be blessed. Notice in verse 37-38 how he talks about the servants who are watching for their Lord with their life. Those servants, he keeps emphasizing, those servants are the ones who are going to be blessed. And this is how Christ wants to find us. He wants us living wisely as though our master. And this is what we always got to keep in mind. He is our Redeemer. He is our mediator. He is our purchaser. We are a purchased possession. We are not our own. He is our master. And he has left instructions for us. And he wants to find us following those instructions when he returns. And there are blessings for the servants who follow their master's instructions, who keep watching even when the master and when the bridegroom tarries. Verse 40, Be ye therefore ready also, for the Son of Man cometh at an hour when ye think not. Don't go back to sleep, servants. Don't give up replenishing the oil. Keep watching, even if the bridegroom tarries, because you should expect me to tarry. And so we examine, when has Christ told us to watch? And we follow that, and we are at this time, he's told us, okay, be expecting him to pull in the driveway during these watches, during this time of the year, and we've been watching. And he's tarrying, and so we're looking at our watch, so to speak, and saying, okay, where is he? Where is he? How long, Lord, how long? We are longing for our Redeemer. We're longing for our beloved to show up. We know we're at a time of expectation when we should be expecting him, and we do also know that he may tarry his coming. And so we're going to continue to watch. We're going to continue to keep our loins girded about, active with what he wants us to be busy with, and making sure that our lamps are burning, which means that we're going to be refilling them constantly, trimming our lamps, casting off the works of darkness. We're going to be following his instructions till the moment he pulls in the driveway, because this is a time of expectation. The later it gets, the more our expectation of him pulling in the driveway should be. And this is where we are right now. We're at a time where the Hebrew people were at the mountain with their mediator going up into the clouds, very similar to our picture. We're awaiting our mediator who's going up into the clouds. And when we think back over the past 3 months, we've studied the pictures of how they were led to this point. They followed the Lord's leading to this point. He showed them signs in Egypt, and he literally led them out of Egypt. He led them to this place here at Mount Sinai. And that's just like our wise men journey. We're at a time right now, over these next 2 weeks, we're at a time where we're reminded we did not start this journey ourselves. We were brought to this place of expectation as well. With the wise men's story, all the parallels are like that. And we're again reminded of the wise men's journey. They saw signs. They went out in faith looking for the king. Where is he? Where is he? And they came all the way to Jerusalem, expecting to see him. They came to the place of expectation where they expected the king to be, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. They got there and they found out he wasn't right there, but he was really close. He was just over in Bethlehem. And they learned new things right at the end. Their expectation was also slightly delayed as well. But they did meet the king, and not too far after their expectation. And we've been on a similar journey. We had seen the fig tree prophecy and other prophecies coming together over the years. We had seen things beginning to come to pass and saying, okay, this is a time we should be looking. We should be expecting more signs of his coming. We should be expecting him to show up. And again, we're reminded of Christ's instructions that Luke instructed the churches about. When these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. We should be reminding ourselves right now that we did look up. We did lift up our heads. We saw celestial things reminding us of our Redeemer, of our redemption, of the whole story tied in there. He doesn't say, for your Redeemer draweth nigh. He says your redemption, which means you understand the story of redemption. You understand your Redeemer. You understand the earnest. You understand the purchasing. You understand the pickup. You understand all these pictures that go with redemption. Understanding how we became a purchased possession. When we understand that, the more we understand what our Redeemer, our mediator has done for us, when we look up, when we lift up our heads, we can then recognize the timing that the celestial heavens are showing that, yes, our redemption, our pickup of the purchased possession by the Redeemer is drawing nigh. And nigh tells us we're coming to an area of expectation, a time of expectation, where we follow his instructions of when to watch, and that brings us nigh, that brings us very close to when he's coming. It doesn't bring us pinpoint, we don't know the day or hour, but he says it'll bring you nigh. You'll be able to see that you are nigh. He's very close. In a general area, you'll be able to see. You will be able to see with your eyeballs the celestial time, the prophetic time. You'll be able to see other stories tied to your redemption that will tell you your beloved is nigh. He's very close. You're very, very warm. And he gives us so many pictures to tell us that we will be able to tell we are nigh. We are close to our expectation, even if he tarries. And we've looked up and we've seen over the past 2 years the celestial signs reminding us of the Lion of the tribe of Judah who did come to be our Redeemer. We've seen so many rare and unique celestial signs. And we're coming up to the 2-year anniversary, which is also part of this story, where we're reminded of what started us on this journey. Just like the wise men saw celestial signs over a period of time, and that led them to rise up and go out to meet the king. And also how the Hebrew people, they started back in Egypt in the first month with Passover, and then they were led out on a path, seeing many signs and wonders that God showed them, and then bringing them to Mount Sinai, their destination several months later. Likewise, we're at a time where we can look back on the journey that God has brought us on, and brought us to this place where we are right now. And we're reminded of those first events that happened on June 30th on the Gregorian calendar with the Jupiter and Venus conjunction. And that was also the same day as the American blood moon. That's just my nickname for it. And how that was caused by the wildfires there. And that was the same night as the Star of Bethlehem sign. And you could see both of those signs at the same time. God was catching the world's attention from the very beginning of this journey of saying, hey, look up. This particular Star Bethlehem reminder sign should remind you of a similar journey that the Bible records. And then this moon should remind you of some other prophetic warnings as well. There were 2 celestial signs on the same night in the same sky that reminded us of prophecy in the time where we are. And that we needed to start watching and living for our Redeemer's return. And the circumstances of the American blood moon reminded us of future prophecies that even happened during the time that Christ warned would happen before the sign of the Son of Man appears. And there's many people who are talking about the upcoming eclipse on August 21st, but keep in mind that is not unique. The Bible does not tell us to look for an eclipse. Those crisscross over the world all the time. This is just a record over the past 20 years. That is not unique. And then especially if you add another 20 years to that, eclipses happen in rare places all the time, and they crisscross in rare places all the time. But it should catch our attention that the American blood moon that happened on the same day as the first Star of Bethlehem sign was caused by smoke. And even the news in Canada and America noticed how that smoke turned the moon orange. And this happened over a number of states and areas of Canada, with many people remarking how the smoke turned the moon a bloodish tinge, and this is what was seen in the evening when the Star of Bethlehem sign was seen as well. And people also noticed that it even dimmed the sun and gave it an orangish haze. And all that was from smoke. And of course that reminded us of the future prophecies that Christ said would happen in that time of travail. The sun is going to be darkened, and the moon's not going to give her light. The sun's going to become black as sackcloth, and the moon become as blood. And what causes it? It's caused by smoke. He's not talking about an eclipse. He's talking about the events that happen. All the destruction kick up the pillars of smoke talked about in Joel 2:30. The smoke is what causes the moon to become as blood, to become a bloodish moon. It's smoke. That's what does it. And the smoke is going to be so thick the sun is going to become black as sackcloth too. It's caused by smoke, and the Bible even tells us this. In our Revelation chapter 12 sign booklet, definitely download it, link in the description box, along with a number of other resources. But in this booklet we cover Christ's warnings of what is going to happen before the sign of the Son of Man appears, before all those celestial actors get into place on September 23rd. He said it's going to be a time of travail that happens before that, with the sun becoming as sackcloth and the moon as blood and the stars falling from heaven too, that happening before the sign appears. He said these are going to happen, and then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven. And then other events are going to happen after that. The more we understand what Christ said, the more we understand where we are right now. And when we remember the celestial signs that we did see when we looked up, when we lifted up our heads, that was also woven into the celestial signs, reminding us of these tribulation events that Christ warned would happen before September 23rd. And we covered before, and it's also in the booklet, multiple times throughout Scripture, Jesus, John, Paul, and Timothy warned about a time of travail before the woman gives birth. There is going to be a time of travail with some of the tribulation events happening during that time. And there's so many teachers who ignore this and gloss over what Christ said is going to happen before the sign fully appears, which is also recorded in the book of Revelation too, happening during the time that she's travailing in birth, before she does deliver. There are going to be significant events in the days ahead before Revelation 12 sign appears. We're not looking to that sign for the rapture. He has told us to expect him some time before that, knowing that there's going to be events happening between his coming and the sign of the Son of Man appearing. Definitely download our booklet and study it for more information. We're at a time right now reminding us of mediators, reminding us of redeemers and bridegrooms, and reminding us of even the heavens opening and whirlwinds and chariots, reminding us also of the journey we've been on, the celestial signs that have led us to this very place. We're also reminded of the celestial signs that reminded us also of what Christ said is going to happen in the near future, right on the horizon. The peace and safety warnings that we also heard about within this time frame on this wise men journey, we also know that's going to be fulfilled very soon, and Christ said it's going to happen before that sign appears. We have so many things reminding us of where we are right now and what's on the horizon. We know he is nigh. He's very close. We're in an area right now of expectation, when we should be expecting our bridegroom, our Redeemer, to return. We're waiting and watching what he has told us. We have expectation. We know he's nigh. He's very close. He's in this area somewhere. We should be expecting our mediator, our Redeemer, our Master to return any day now. And because we are expecting him, we should be living accordingly, with our lights burning and with our heart and life set on things above. He reminds his servants he wants to find us ready, because we do not know the exact day or hour he's going to be pulling into the driveway. We need to be ready ahead of time, expecting that as soon as he shows up, we are ready to go, because we are living as though he's about to show up. We've been lifting up our heads, we've been looking up, we've been studying our redemption, and we've also been listening to our Redeemer. We've heard so many calls telling us the bridegroom cometh. Go ye out to meet him. And so we are going to rise up, we're going to trim our lamps, we're going to cast off the works of darkness, and we're going to put on the armor of light. The light that He wants to see shining in our life. And we're going to rise up and we're going to serve our Redeemer, our Mediator, our Bridegroom, our Beloved, Jesus Christ, first and highest above all else. Maranatha.